Welcome to the Centralpoint Forms Wizard. This tool is designed to make it easier for you to create online forms, set up their workflow, and even dynamically create the documentation which gets generated when users fill them out. This wizard has 5 steps, which cover the fields you will need for your form, how they will be presented on the screen, or what we call field prompts, how the form should be laid out, and then finally, what happens once that form is submitted. In other words, who should be emailed, what workflow is required, and whether or not documents are dynamically generated upon submission. All forms created in Centralpoint are being stored. This means you will have full reporting of all forms submitted and can always access these records by visiting Forms Results. You will see the link to the results of each form to the right of each form in the client console. We highly recommend that you fully understand what fields will be needed in order to accomplish this task. Take a minute and think about how many fields will be needed, and also which of these fields will be required or will use validation. It is always important to remember required fields or validation to ensure that the data collected in your form is correct. Another question will be to determine how many pages you want for your form. In most cases, a form uses only one web page to present itself, but sometimes longer forms may need to be broken up into multiple pages, showing a back and next button to the user as they fill it out, allowing for pagination of your many form fields. To get started, simply select a name for your new form and click on the Next button at the bottom of this screen. At any time during this wizard, you will be able to go back to previous steps should you need to. Step 1. Configuring your fields. Here you will have the opportunity to ask for the number of each different field you will need for your form. Most fields are considered text areas for simple content, like a first name, last name, or address. Typically, many of these are used in the creation of any form. There are others though, like date selectors, allowing a user to pick from a calendar view to assign a date. There are also other fields like RTF text editors, which allow users to submit content to you, which gives them formatting capabilities, file uploads for them to upload images or documents, and even electronic signatures. Selecting this field will present an area for your users to sign off on their form, including their signature in the submission, which can later be mapped, like all other fields, into a document template. This empowers you to streamline the flow of data within your organization from a simple form all the way down to the finished paperwork you want. Should you have selected a multi-page form or pagination, it will ask you to do this for each page within your multi-step form. When completed, simply click on Next at the bottom right of this page. Step 2. Naming your form fields. In this step, you will name each form field. This allows you to manage the field prompt which appears prior to each field. So, if you were collecting first name, you would want to call your field First Name, and the form field will appear right after it. For many of your fields like email address, zip code, you will see a drop-down list, which allows you to apply validation. Validation will enforce that any data entered by your users will adhere to what is expected, and if they do not enter an accurate email address, social security number format, the form will reject their entry until it conforms or is validated. You will also see a checkbox next to each field designated whether that field will be required. Again, if the user does not provide information within that field, the form will not allow them to submit the form until they do. You will note that for each label or field prompt you add, there is also a name managed for each field. Centralpoint will automatically assign one for you, but the reason for this is if you need to map your newly named field to another database later. Should you want to do that, this feature allows you to name the fields of where this data will eventually be deposited to. Later, should you need to integrate with other systems, not to worry, as long as you name each label and designate which of the fields are required or need validation, that is all you will need to worry about in this step. If you selected checkboxes or radio buttons, giving your users some option list to select from, you may want to add a list of different options within your form. Please click on the button Add List Items, and you will see how these are managed. Within these modal windows, you can easily create either checkbox lists or radio button lists, which will be added to your form. Simply add your lists within this pop-up modal window. and when done, click on Save and Close. This will save this option list to your form. When completed naming all of your fields and designated which are required or need validation, please click Next at the bottom of the screen to proceed to Step 3. Step 3. Laying out your form. By default, Centralpoint will know how many fields you have selected from the previous steps. It will ask you how many rows you want for your form. Simply enter the same number of fields that you have selected into this box, and it will automatically lay out a linear, vertical form for you, which will then allow you to present your fields in a particular order. If you are curious about this step, should you want to create a multi-column form, you could select a shorter number of rows, in which to place 2, 3, 4 more fields within a singular column. Because some fields are larger than others, like RTF text areas, comment boxes, or even signature lines, it is easiest to work within an inline, linear, vertical form to present your fields. It will also be easier later to maintain this form, but you are welcome to choose either option. Now that you have selected how many rows or columns, it is time to select which of your fields are presented, and in which order on the form. Simply select the fields you want to appear, and in which order. If you happen to make a mistake, you can redo it on this form, and the selector will conveniently show you which fields are already in use. A helpful tool should you have many forms associated with your form. When completed, click on Next at the bottom of the form. Step 4. Previewing your form. There is not much to do on this step, other than to show you the order of the fields that you have selected. Your form will not look exactly like this, but similar, and is designed to show you the general layout of your form. If you would like to change what you see, you can click on Back on the bottom of this form to change your previous selections. When satisfied with the layout, click on Next at the bottom of this form to go to Step 5. Step 5. Workflow takes a lot of things into consideration, namely if you would like this form emailed to a particular user or user group as they are submitted. This means that as forms are submitted, those users you define will receive all incoming requests. If you would like to email a confirmation to someone once this form is submitted, select Yes. Here you will need to define the email of the recipient. If your form actually contains a field which asks for their email address, you can use this field by copying the script provided under this field prompt and changing the field name of this example to whatever you have called it. You can also assign an email to be used for all incoming requests. Here you will also be able to copy others on the incoming email correspondence and create a subject line for each incoming form email. This will help your users group all requests of a particular type, and may be a good idea to ask those receiving emails to create a folder in Outlook in which to organize all incoming requests by virtue of the subject line you identify here. Within this step, you can also manage rules beyond simply notifying others, asking if these incoming requests should be approved via email. You may also manage things like the thank you message the users receive after they submit their forms. There are advanced features here which can also allow you to map all form fields into a document template, so that documents may be dynamically generated. To select if you would like to use template document processing, click Yes. Here, Centralpoint Forms Wizard will present you with the fields from your form, which can be copied and pasted into a Microsoft Word document. To use these, simply open up Microsoft Word in another window. Create a new document. Copy and paste the fields presented to you with squiggly brackets around each into your Word document. Once you have saved your Word document, including the squiggly brackets, you can upload this document in the Document Upload button called Template Upload. In this way, as your forms get submitted and they trigger workflow and thank the user, they will also dynamically generate new documents for you and your users, mapping all of the fields through your Word document template automatically. This means that you can format your Microsoft Word template as any way you want, including fonts, colors, and placement. Finally, if you want your Word document template to be converted to a read-only PDF on submission, please select the file type of PDF. In this way, all submission will generate a PDF output of the form. The reason we do this is to give your staff full control over the formatting of the template or output, whilst preserving the security of the document submitted, so that it cannot be altered by the end user. Another feature to consider is if you want your newly created form fields to be mapped to a Centralpoint module. A user may want this should they want all fields stored within a searchable module for later use. If you do, you can simply select Yes to map your fields to a Centralpoint module, and then select which module you would like to have these fields mapped to. Once you select your module, Centralpoint will provide you with a link to download an XML document. Please save this XML document to your desktop prior to moving to the next step. This document will be needed by either your Oxeon production representative or you, which will be uploaded into that specific module's module configuration. In essence, this file will create new fields within a Centralpoint module, which identically mirror the fields from your newly created form, so that all data will be collected and stored within a module dedicated to all form submissions. This is not always needed, but a nice feature to have. After you have selected all of your workflow options, please select Save at the bottom of this form, under the Completed or Thank You message. If there are any required fields during this step, it will not advance to the next step until you have completed them. Once you have completed this step, you are done. Below, you will see a link to preview your new form and a link to view all the results of this form or the reporting. Click on Preview Your Form to see your form, as it will be seen online. At the bottom of this form, you will see some scripting. This scripting allows you to copy and paste it anywhere within your site that you would like to see it, within a navigation page or within any section of your site. Also, when viewing the live reports for this form, same thing. This scripting at the bottom will allow you manage an online report showing all submissions against this form. It is our recommendation to copy both the scripting to your form and/or the results of your form and paste it to a notepad. In this way, you can decide where you may want to place both. To apply your form or results to a navigation page, simply create a new navigation record, paste the script for either in the HTML view of your page, and submit. You may want to be cautious to consider which users can access this form, and even more so, which users can view the results submitted against the report to any form. Now that we've created our form, let's take a look at the actual form record. This record is really made up of 3 tabs. First, the form fields, and then the thank you page. Here we will see how each form might offer its validation fields right next to it. Should we need to add field to this form later, we can, but you need to be careful to preserve its formatting. Next, we will take a look at the Workflow tab. This is the tab that will route the form to the correct individual, including subject line. Also, within this tab, we will see if any confirmation is required. This suggests that someone may be approving the incoming request. If this is activated, we need to concern ourselves with the various messages, which either get sent to the administrator for approval, or if the different messages sent back to the user shouldn't be approved or should it be denied. Finally, we will take a look at the Processing tab. This is where we are mapping the data from the form submitted to various output types. One type we will see is where we are mapping this information to a module found within Centralpoint. But we may also need to map those fields through a document template, so that signed documents are created each time the form's filled out. Down below in Document Template, we will see where the template is stored, which fields are being used to map to the template, and which type of output has been selected. Finally, we might need to integrate the data submitted from this form into other systems. This might be through a direct database connection or through a web service. You'll see that by using the Form Wizard, a lot of this has been considered for you in advance. Both a database connection string, including the fields from your form, as well as a web service has been written automatically, should you ever need to integrate this data into other back-office systems. This means that you could hand these to your IT department to enable their integration with other systems. This is typically the case with the form being submitted, may trigger workflow, create documentation, and then be deposited into yet another system like SharePoint, Salesforce, or ERP. These out-of-the-box data connectors enable integration with virtually any back-office, system, or partner you may have. Now, let's take a look at the data source or forms report. This would be an example of a live report. We might want to show off all forms would have been. This report actually lives within Centralpoint data sources. Again, this report was automatically created once you use the Forms wizard to create your new form. This report, like the form itself, can be put on your website, perhaps tagged to only your administrators so that they may review all forms submitted over time. You will see that this report is sortable by column and searchable by keyword. This report can also offer an export of a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet if needed. Should you need to customize this form or to move columns around or suppress certain information from the report, you can easily go into the Data Source Formatting tab for this report and change it around in the fields.